Hey, hey, freelance mamas. Welcome back. So I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit more about choosing your service. So I've gotten a ton of questions around this recently, so I wanted to go ahead and make a video and address that. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions or maybe something I didn't answer that you're hoping to get answered, please comment below. That way I can make sure that I answer your question and give you the support you need. So, when we are first starting out with freelancing, it can feel so incredibly overwhelming. At least it did for me when when I started 4.5 years ago. And there's just like so many questions, and the most common is like, how do I get started? What do I even offer? Like, what do I do? How do I choose what service I'm going to offer? So, what I recommend doing is kind of a two-part approach that may be a little different. Um, and it's really definitely geared towards moms and like stay-at-home moms, or if we're trying to be more present for our kids. Um, so I'll dive into that in a minute. But the first thing we're gonna do is I personally love to like those big pieces of paper. You can get them in rolls. My kids use them, or like a whiteboard. And I like to sit down and actually brainstorm and like write down everything. Like, so what skills do you have? Um, or you can even start even before you do that. If you're like kind of drawing a blank, you're like, I don't know. Um, what you can do is you can say, what experience do I have? So like you can list out any jobs that you've done. Okay. So I get people that are like, oh, well, I was only in retail, or I was only in food service. And please put that down because there's so many good transferable skills that you can use. So if you're drawing a blank, start and just like write all your experience, whatever it is. Like maybe you worked in food service, maybe you worked in marketing, maybe you're a teacher, like all these things. Write that down first. Okay. And then what I want you to do is also include the things you do as a mom. So I always say I'm the CEO of my household as a stay-at-home mom because I am managing so many different things. I personally do our finances and pay the bills and keep track of that. I also am making appointments for my kids and coordinating, oh, this one has a school party, this dress up day is like wear crazy socks, and like keeping track of all of those. Or oh, I need to sign up for gymnastics for the summer, or soccer signups are coming up, and just like managing all these different projects. So write all of that down. Don't forget to include your experience as a mom because it is so valuable. And just to show you how valuable it is, I actually had a client, a male client of mine in the past, tell me that like when he was starting to work with me, and I was like, just FYI, this was when I was just starting out and I just had my one baby home with me. I was like, I do have my baby home with me, but I work around her schedule, yada yada. And he's like, I specifically hired you because I know how organized and um like driven and what's the word, like efficient stay-at-home moms have to be. So that like I know that you can bring that to my business, and that's why I brought you on. Like I am so glad that I have you working for me because you're bringing those valuable skills to my business. And he like dead serious. That is what he said. So I really just want you to keep that in mind when you try to diminish all of the experience of just being a mom, just in quotes, right? Um, so really think about that. I don't want you to diminish that at all. Okay. So after you have your experiences, then I want you to take out like your skills. So, okay, if I was a teacher, I used to be a teacher. If I was a teacher, okay, well, I'm organized. I had classroom management skills, so I could manage multiple people. I could communicate with different kinds of people, whether it was kids, whether it was parents, other teachers, administrators, et cetera, right? So good communication skills. I had to be organized and juggle multiple projects at one time. Okay. So, all these different things. If you worked in retail, maybe you did inventory and like back office or back end stuff. Okay. Well, that's data entry, data organization. If you did customer service, okay, I was had a ton of customer service experience. You could say if you were in the food service industry, you can be like, oh, well, I was prioritizing constantly throughout my shift. Like, what is the most important? And really just managing a bunch of different projects, a bunch of different tasks all at one time, right? Um, so think about those things. If you worked in marketing or human resources, or if you were in the medical field, what are some of these things? Like, I get a lot of nurses. And one of my very, very good friends who is also a business owner does nurse writing. Okay. So, like, she actually writes content for organizations that are like health and wellness focused, or any kind, like, the possibilities are so endless, right? So just think about all the skills, the knowledge, the experience, if you have education or certifications. I have somebody who has that I'm working with that has an accounting degree, and I'm like, oh my gosh, bookkeeping, that's such a huge thing, right? So definitely just brainstorm all of that. Like, even if you don't think it's relevant, just write it down. That's all we're doing. We're not trying to overanalyze or overthink it. Okay. We just want to get it down on paper. Okay. That's the first chunk, or I guess the first phase one. Okay. Now, phase two, this is the part that is geared specifically to my moms, my caregivers, because um I will tell you a story. I did not do this when I first started out, and um, I learned the hard way that I needed to, because I burnt out really, I wouldn't say fairly, like, within, I would say, like, 6 months, I like had some pretty significant burnout because I didn't take this part into consideration. And it makes sense looking back because I was a first time mom. So the next chunk, I guess phase two, is I want you to write down where you are at in your life. Okay. So how many kids do you have? How old are they? Are they in school? Are you working, you just have a newborn? Are you pregnant and trying not to return to maternity leave? Like, where are you in your life? Okay. And what is your priority? So many, like, most moms that start this, it's like, well, I want to be there for my babies. I want to be able to make money without like missing out on time with my kids. And I'm like, that's awesome. So write that down, and then like consider, okay, where are your kids at? If your kids are older and maybe they're in school, all week, or all day, even if it's just a couple of days a week, if they're in school all day, that's gonna look so completely different. Like, what works for you and your family is gonna work so completely different than that mom with a newborn, or that mom with a toddler that isn't going to school yet. Okay. So think about like where you are in your life. What does your day to day look like? What do your priorities look like? Okay. So the reason why I tell you to do this is, if you don't, say you're that mom with a toddler and the toddler's home all day and you're just like trying to, like, be there and occupy them and manage the meltdowns and all the things that toddlers do, right? If you're going to need to be somebody that's like doing customer service work, kind of like on call or talking on the phone a lot, that's not going to be conducive to where you're at in your life with your toddler, most likely. Now, again, everybody's situation is different, but I've been there and I could tell you that was not conducive. Versus if you are somebody whose kids are going to school a couple days a week or all the days of the week and they are, gone all day, that may be conducive for your family to do that, to kind of like be on call more. If you're so like, I'll give you a perfect example of when I was starting out. I was like a virtual assistant, project manager. When I just had one kid, I had a client ask me to like start making phone calls weekly. And I was like, yeah, sure, because I didn't have strong boundaries yet. And it was really hard and stressful to like try to manage that around my kids' nap times. And then when I had two kids, it became nearly impossible. Um, so I had to like say, look, I had to like take a step back from that. I've also when I only had one baby, I was juggling like multiple different tasks that had to be done either daily or weekly. And that was totally fine when I had one kid. Well, when I added my second and then I had two under two, it became too much for me personally to manage. It was like I was trying to manage two tiny humans and then also, these different tasks that had to be weekly or whatever, and it was just a lot. It was a lot of different things. It was not hard. I just want to be upfront that the tasks themselves were not hard, but for my brain and where I was in my life, it was really hard for me to keep up. So I had to pivot and move away from that. And that is when I eventually started doing content writing because that was write the blog post, write the what, whatever, write the content, send it off for feedback and then it was like and then correct it, make changes, and then it was done. It was like, "Oh, wow, that worked so much better for my brain, for my life." Now I have 3 kids under the age of 5, and I'm still doing that, and it works perfect because I could do it on my time, I could work after they go to bed, or my older 2 go to school a couple days a week, and the baby naps, and I can, like, chunk out my time that way. So, really just, like, think about these things when you are trying to figure out what service you want to offer, what skills do you bring, and where are you at in your life. Okay. And then once you have those two things, it's time to like marry them together. Um, so like the skills you have and where you're at in your life, and of course, what you're going to enjoy doing, right? We don't want to do something. I give this example all the time. I'm great at doing spreadsheets, but it makes me want to stab my eyes out. And like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be happy and fulfilled doing that. I'm going to be like miserable, like I was at my corporate job. So that's a no go for me. I personally enjoy writing and being creative. So that's what I offer. So think about those things and how they can fit into your lives. Okay. So, like a virtual assistant, that can be general admin tasks, that could be scheduling out emails that are already written. Okay, there's tons of things you could do. That could be setting up somebody's tech on the back end. That could be just like helping manage their Facebook group. That kind of like overlaps a little bit with social media manager. So those two are kind of very similar. And kind of what clients will call them. Sometimes they say a social media VA, sometimes they say a social media manager. It just depends. Um, and then, like a social media manager, you can create all that content, get the feedback, and then like schedule it out for your client. Or maybe they have you do some engagement and you can like block out, okay, I'm going to block out 30 minutes 3 times a week to go do engagement. So different things like that. If you're a bookkeeper, okay, well, like I gotta make sure I do this task monthly for this client. Okay. So really think about those things. And if you haven't already grabbed the flexible work from home ideas for moms guide, definitely I'll drop the link here, but definitely grab that because it breaks down the different types of in-demand freelance jobs and what skills you need for that. And then there's a little worksheet um, the one at the end of it where you can kind of like brainstorm and work through a lot of this. So that's basically how I recommend choosing your service. Again, that second part about where I was in my life, I didn't personally do that when I first started out, and I learned the hard way. So I learned from my mistakes. I don't want you to have to go through that. So um, definitely don't skip that part. And then again, grab that flexible work from home ideas for moms guide, and it'll break down everything. And you can kind of go through and, okay, well, I have these skills, I could do this, and you can kind of start to brainstorm. Okay. So definitely grab that guide if you haven't already. And I hope everybody is ready to dive in and is excited about choosing their service. Again, if you have any questions, please, please, please drop it in the comments. I want to be there to support you and to help you. So if you have those questions, please let me know so I can answer them. I can either comment back, or if I get enough of the same types of questions, I will make another video. So don't forget, grab your guide and drop your questions below.